Have you ever sat with your child during homework and thought, why is this still so hard? You explained it, you break it down, you maybe even write it out step by step. And then a few minutes later, it's like none of it stuck. And that's when most moms start wondering, is this just a normal struggle or could it be dyslexia? Now, the truth is, dyslexia doesn't always look the same in every child, but there are some very common signs that show up again and again. So in the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through those signs in a really simple, real life way. No jargon, no confusion. And I also put together a simple dyslexia checklist that breaks this down for more clarity. I'll mention it again at the end so you don't miss it. All right, let's get started. When most people think of dyslexia, they usually think of reading. And yes, that's often where it shows up first. But it's not just reading a bit slow. It can feel like reading takes a lot of effort. Like every word has to be worked through instead of just flowing. You might notice your child using their finger to follow along. And if they lose their place, they have to go back and start all over again. Another common thing is guessing words. Instead of sounding it out, they might look at the first letter and try to guess the rest of the word. Sometimes they get it right, and sometimes it completely changes the meaning. And something many moms notice is avoidance. They'll say things like, I don't like reading, or reading is boring. But often what they really mean is that it feels tiring or frustrating. Over time, they just try to avoid reading when they can. Now, writing is another big area. Spelling might look inconsistent. A word can be spelled one way in one sentence and completely different later on. And it's not about not knowing the word, it's more like the spelling doesn't stick in memory the same way. You might also see letters reversed, sometimes like the B and the D, especially in younger children. But what stands out most is how slow writing can be. Even when they know exactly what they want to say, getting it onto paper takes time, a lot of time. And that's because they are doing multiple things at once. Thinking, spelling, organizing, and writing, all at the same time. For many children with dyslexia, that's where the overload happens. They may just freeze and not know how to start, even when the idea is clear in their head. Another very common sign is difficulty holding instructions in mind. You might say something simple like, go get your backpack, take out your folder, and start your homework. And they only remember part of it, not because they weren't listening, but because the steps don't all stay in working memory long enough to process them. So they come back and ask again, or just stand there, unsure of what to do next. And sometimes they'll even start the wrong step, not because they are careless, but because the full instruction didn't stick. This can be really frustrating for both the child and the mom, because it looks like they should be able to do it, but something keeps slipping. Now let's talk about memory and sequencing. This is where things like routines, steps, and order can feel tricky. For example, forgetting steps in a daily routine, mixing up the order of events in a story, struggling to remember sequences like spelling patterns or instructions. And what makes this confusing is that it's inconsistent. Some days it's fine, other days it's not. But that's part of how dyslexia works. It's not about intelligence or effort. It's about how the brain organizes and retrieves information in sequence. So even simple things can sometimes feel harder to hold in the right order. And then there's something really important that often gets overlooked: the emotional side. Many children with dyslexia start to feel frustrated with schoolwork, especially reading and writing. You might hear things like, "I'm just bad at this," or "I can't do it." And over time, they may start avoiding anything that involves reading or writing. Not because they don't want to do the work, but because it feels like effort isn't leading to success. And that can really affect confidence. So if you recognize some of these signs, the goal is not to label your child. It's to understand what might be going on. Because once you understand it, you can start to support it in a very different way. And like I mentioned earlier, I put together a dyslexia checklist that breaks all of this down in an easy, practical way. It's there if you want something to guide you through it step by step. Take a deep breath. You don't have to figure everything out at once. Just understanding what you're seeing is already a big step forward. I will see you in the next video.